Hello guys and welcome to a brand new series of videos I'm calling Useful DJ Tech. In these videos I'm going to suggest different bits of technology and tools that you should bring along to every single gig. In each episode I'll go through roughly 6 different products and show you why you need them in your gig bag. So let's get started with episode 1. So the first thing we're going to look at is this little box here. This is the TPLink TLWR702N. Very long name. It's a small wireless access point. Basically on the front here you've got an Ethernet connection, you've got a USB connection for your power, this is USB powered, and then a small reset button, and that's really it. What this thing does is basically creates a small wireless network, which is perfect for you to connect things like iPhones and iPads. The reason I suggest something like this is it would be great to have tucked away in a flight case to use as your wireless access point for controlling your lighting software like MyDMX 2.0 with the wireless app. Rather than carrying around a big wireless router, this small little box can neatly tuck away inside a flight case. Now, since it's so small and doesn't have any external antennas, it doesn't have the best wireless range. However, for the size, it's a really cool piece of kit to have. The next thing I want to talk about is one of my favourite things in my tool case, and that is this, the Bosch PLR15. And what it is a laser distance measurer, if that's the correct name for it. Basically what you can do here is if I turn it on, you'll see it shines a little laser out the front here, one visible laser, and then I believe there's also some clever trickery here, which I can't really tell you anything about. But what you do is you shine this at a surface, and on the screen it'll tell you the distance from the base of the unit to wherever the laser dot is hitting. It's much faster than getting out a tape measure to measure out an area. If you need to know if a venue is going to be wide enough to fit your truss, simply get this out, point it at the wall, and you've got a very quick, accurate idea of what that distance is. Another great use for this is measuring out cable runs. I've used this for that before. If you want to work out how far it is to the wall over there, you just put it on the ground, point the laser at the wall, and it'll give you an instant indication of what length cable you're going to need. Now this one here is limited to about 30 to 40 meters. However, you can get versions which will measure longer distances. The next item on the list is great if you're working with additional members of crew. This is a simple walkie-talkie. In fact, it's a really cheap Chinese thing called a Baofeng, and if you turn it on here,
power on.
it'll talk to you in a
3, 2,
very strong Chinese accent. However, it's a very affordable walkie-talkie with a lot of range on it, and the advantage of having something like this is if you're working with a team of people, you can easily stay in contact without having to use mobile phones. I mean, it's great, you can just pick up the phone and call someone if they're in another room or outside getting something from the van, but you can't always rely on having decent phone signal inside venues, particularly if you're working outside in a marquee in the middle of nowhere. Now hopefully a lot of you have this already. This is a multi-tool. To be specific, this is the Leatherman Wave. And it's a very compact multi-tool which gives you loads of different tools, including like pliers, knives, you've got a saw, screwdrivers, a really useful thing to have on your belt at all times. Now this is the Leatherman Wave, which is a rather expensive Leatherman. It's about £100, but there are cheaper versions available. Having something like this on your belt at all times is incredibly important, especially during fit up, allowing you to quickly cut cable ties without having to go and grab scissors or anything like that. Now this next piece of tech might not be so obvious. This is the Kneeworth CN160. It's a very cheap Chinese LED video light designed to go on top of video cameras. It's just got a big bank of LEDs and you put a battery in the back. This one here takes a variety of batteries, including AA's, but you can also put in things like Sony camera batteries, rechargeable ones, and then you have an extremely bright video light. I mean, this battery isn't particularly charged, so this isn't full brightness, but it is a very bright video light. Now the reason I'm suggesting this is not for use with video. Now when I was doing a gig about 3 years ago now, it was quite late in the year and it was outside in a marquee in someone's garden, and they hadn't actually installed any lighting into the venue, so it was getting quite dark and it was really difficult in the back of the marquee to see what I was doing. I ended up wandering around with the light from my phone or using a torch to see what I was doing, but it just made that setup process so much more difficult, and it probably took about twice as long as it should have done. However, if I actually had something like this with me, I could mount it onto a tripod or a stand through the threaded mount in the bottom. It's a standard camera thread. Point it to where you want to set up, power it on, and you've got a nice light to be able to see what you're doing, nice and bright. And with a big Canon battery in here, it'll last up to about 4 hours on full brightness, which is quite impressive. Now, I do know you can get proper outdoor work lights which are probably waterproof and have much longer battery life. However, you can also use this guy to attach onto your camera. So if you do need that video light for doing any filming, you've got that right on the camera. And the final thing I want to talk about in this episode is this little USB light wand here. You've got a USB connector on one end, it's a bendable arm here, and you've got a little LED light on the other. Now this is really useful if you just need a little light over your DJ console. You could also plug this guy into a USB battery bank to power it for a really long time. But the main thing I found that this is useful for is with the Wi-Fi NE1. You can plug it into that USB port and you've now got a nice little light which will illuminate your NE1. So that was the first episode of Useful DJ Tech. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have any suggestions for pieces of technology or tools you'd like to see in future episodes, please leave them in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.